Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the fourth and final day of the Tech Virtual Summit. My name is Nina Sclafani, and you are joining us right now for using Microsoft Teams for remote learning. In the next 45 minutes, Christine and Joe are going to help you navigate all the different things about Microsoft Teams while we navigate this new weird hybrid education world of ours. We're going to get started in about 2 minutes. I just want to allow some time for more people to enter the room. I hope you've all been enjoying the summit as much as I have. This has been, so far, 3 very excellent days of learning. We've seen so many amazing presentations. And if there's anything that you missed along the way, we have all of this actually on our YouTube page. We have a YouTube playlist dedicated to all the recordings of the sessions that we've held so far. So if there's something you missed, you can check that out there. I will send that information all in the follow-up email. As I mentioned, we're going to get started in just about another minute. We just want to let more people into the space, but if you are just joining us, welcome to the fourth and final day of the Tech Virtual Summit. You are in using Microsoft Teams for remote learning. Christine, Joe, have you guys been able to check out any of the sessions?
Well,
I haven't actually. I was going to try and check a couple of them out. I really wanted to do the Rube Goldberg one, but I got busy with other stuff, unfortunately.
I know your guys' schedule, but like I said, it's posted. And Joe, I know that you did moderate one of our most popular sessions, actually. It was really excellent what you and Nicole did the other day.
Oh, I lied. I did catch that one. Not live, but on YouTube. I watched that one.
Yeah, it was the first session. So, gang, if you like what you see right now, you know, you can see another really great one. And with that, I'm going to get us started. My name is Nina Sclafani. I'm the Senior Events Coordinator for Tech, and welcome to the fourth and final day of the Tech Virtual Summit. You are in using Microsoft Teams for remote learning. If you are new to Zoom, take your mouse and scroll over your screen. At the bottom of your page, you'll see there's a tab that pops up. There's a Q&A box and a chat box. If you click on both of those, you can pop those out, and you can use the chat throughout today's presentation to let us know where you're from, what you teach. If there's anything that you want to comment on that you think is exceptional, use the chat for that. If you have a question for Christine, make sure to put that in the Q&A box. Joe is going to be watching that box and helping answer your questions throughout. However, if your question doesn't get answered in the box, don't worry. We're leaving a few minutes at the end so that Christine can address those questions that may need further explanation. With that, I will pass the baton over to the two of you. Christine, thank you so much for joining us for today's session.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here with you guys to talk about Teams for remote learning. So my name is Christine Bell, and I'm a curriculum specialist here at Tech. And I have my coworker here with me who's going to be manning the chat box for us. Joe, you want to say hello?
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Joe Quadrino. I'm also a curriculum specialist at Tech. If you have questions, use that Q&A box. Save the chat box for just general stuff. Use that Q&A box for questions. And we'll get those answered for you.
Okay, great. Thanks so much, Joe. And then as Nina mentioned, I'll save a couple minutes at the end to address some of the questions that might need a little bit of extra care with them. So for now, I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen, and we will jump into the presentation. So give me one moment here, and let me find my window. Okay. Can everyone see my window right now? I hope so.
We can see it.
Excellent. Okie dokie. So I'm going to go ahead and hop into my presentation. So this is using Microsoft Teams for remote learning. So here's our agenda for today. So first, we're going to just cover what is Teams. So if you're not familiar with it, we'll just go over the basics. Then we'll talk about creating a team for your class, as well as teams and channels, how to create each of those things, and the menus and the basics of just what Teams looks like. I'm going to give you guys a little tour of everything. Then after that, we'll talk about working in teams, and I'm going to highlight some features that I think are probably the most useful for teachers. There's a lot that goes on with Teams, and there's a lot of submenus and a lot of different capabilities. So what I'm going to try and do in this session today is just highlight a few of the things that I think are most useful for the classroom, and especially useful for if you're doing remote or hybrid learning. So those are things such as the class notebook, adding files, assignments, and video conferencing. So let's hop in and get started with all of that. So first things first, what is Teams? So Teams is an app that Microsoft put out that is part of the Office 365 suite. So you will need an Office 365 account to use it. Most schools, if you're using this already, you'll be using your school email that is associated with the Office 365 account, and your students will also have an email that's associated with the 365 account as well. So it's a place where people can connect and collaborate in real time together. So it's an app that you can use messaging, you can do video conferencing, but Teams for Education specifically, you can also use it as an LMS or a learning management system. So you can have Teams set up for different classes, for different sections of different classes, for your PLC or professional learning networks, for your department, for clubs, after school activities, things like that. I mean, you name it, you can set up a team for it. It's a really great place to sort of have everything organized and then also be able to communicate. And it's all digital, it's all online, so it's perfect for remote learning. Alrighty, so let's hop into how to actually use it. And I just want you guys to remember that you do need a 365 account, and your students will also need that as well. It should be provided by the school. If you're not sure, just speak to your admin. Okay, so let's jump into Teams and how to create a team for your class as well as a channel for your class, and then we'll go over some of the menus and the basics. Okay, so in Teams, there are two different sort of avenues of organization. There's Teams, which is the big main component of it, obviously, since that's what it's called, right? And then there's channels. So in a team, it would be something that you would use for your whole class, your whole PLC, your whole club, right? So it's all of the students in, for example, your ELA class would all be on one team. You can create teams that are different for different sections. So if you're an ELA teacher, for example, and you teach 4 periods of ELA, you can have a different team for each period. Or you can create one team and have different channels for each period. It just depends on how you prefer to organize things. So I really suggest, as you guys are gearing up for the start of next school year, to really kind of play around inside Teams and see what you think is going to be the best for your students and what's going to work best for sort of how you like to organize your, materials, your files, your life in general, right? So each team, inside of a team, you'll be able to post. You'll have a materials section. You'll have a class notebook, and that's for the teacher and the students as well. You'll also have assignments and grades, as well as video conference and meetings. So for each team, it has its own sort of little section for all of those. So each team will have all of these capabilities. On the other side, we have channels. So channels are basically subsections of a team. You can think about them as if they're like tabs. So they're great for organizing and separating materials. And so if you, for example, wanted to have different groups in your class, you could do that. You could have group A, group B, group C, and each group could have access to sort of different materials. So you can think about this like skills leveling, or for students that maybe need some extra enrichment materials, or maybe you have a group of students that might need some additional scaffolding, or they might have different requirements if they have an IEP or a 504, right? You can make a group for those students, and you can even make groups private so that the whole class won't know that a certain group is getting extra materials or different materials or things like that. So great idea for group work, could be good for scaffolding and enrichment. It could be good to do like topics or units. So you could have a different channel for each unit. This way you can organize all of your information and all of your materials based on the unit to make it easier to find. And some teachers, especially elementary school teachers, will sometimes do this in subjects. I wouldn't necessarily recommend doing separate channels for different subjects for like high school where you're a subject-based teacher, but for elementary school that can work. So those are just some ideas. And now that we've kind of gone over the basics of it, I'm going to show you on Teams what all of this looks like. So in order to log in, all you need to do is you need to go to Office and you just click on Sign in the top right corner. And I'm going to be using a sample account that has 365 for education. So it has all of the capabilities that you should have if you are a 365 user. So here I am, I'm signed into my account. And I'm just going to go to Teams, which is, you'll see where my mouse is right here. It's highlighted. It looks like this. So you click on that. And you can see all of the different Microsoft apps and tools in there, and they're really well integrated inside Teams, which is a great feature, something I really like about the program. So it'll take a minute to load up, and then you'll see this screen. You can tell that I'm logged in because in the very top right corner, you see TT, which is Tech Teacher. Those are my initials, so you can see that I'm logged in here. On this page, you'll see that I have a bunch of different teams that I am a part of. And we're going to use this first one here, this OTIS team. For those of you that don't know, OTIS is our online platform where we push out professional development sessions and stuff like that. So that's why that's the name of the team. And you'll see behind me, it also says OTIS. So we're going to use this today. So if you click into a team, it'll open up for you and you'll see this page here. So I just want to give you guys a brief tour of what the menus look like, and then we'll get into how to create a team and how to create channels. So first things first, when you're inside a team, you'll see on the left-hand sidebar, you have some different icons here that'll help you navigate around. The first one is the chat. So if you click on this, you'll see a history of your chat sessions, right? I don't have much here. I just have an attendance bot that I've been chatting with. You have your teams, right, which will bring you back to this page here. You have your assignments. So this is anything that you've assigned will show up all together, all in one place. Your calendar, which obviously will show your calendar, and you'll see any appointments. So you can see I have a co-teaching meeting that was on Tuesday of this week, right? That was scheduled, calls and files. And then you have some extra, you can do add-ons, like you can add different extensions and things like that from there. So that's the sidebar menu. Let's go back to the team, because most of what you're going to be doing in Teams, you're going to stay on the Teams section and you're going to navigate from here. So if you look across the top, you'll see on the top bar, there are posts, files, class notebook, assignments, grades, meeting notes, and then once again, you have that plus where you can add in additional extensions. So those are like kind of like plug-in different programs that work well with Teams. Okay, so this first one post, this is the stream, and this is basically like the log of everything that's ever happened in this team. Was there a meeting? Did you post an assignment? Is there an event coming up on the calendar, right? It all goes here. So this is really your hub spot, and your students will be seeing this as well. We're going to get a little bit more into some of these other areas a little bit later on, but I just wanted to give you guys just a brief little tour of what's what. Okay, so if we go back at the top above OTIS team, where it says all teams right here, you can go back and see all of the different teams that you have, right? And if you click on the three dots or the ellipsis in the top right of any team, right here, you'll see that there are a bunch of different options. You can hide a team, you can manage a team, so you can set different permissions and things like that for what different types of users can do from here. It's not all encompassing, so some of the permissions for, like, for example, students and teachers and what they're allowed to do, some of that is on the admin side. So if you don't see it here, talk to your admin to see if there's some capability for something you may want your students to be able to do or not be able to do. Right? You can add a channel, add a member, leave the team, edit it, or delete it from this section right here, which is, I think, pretty cool. It's an easy kind of way to do that. And if you click into the team, once again, right, you'll see that the three dots come up over here, and it's sort of the same idea to do that. Okay, so let's go back to all teams for a moment, and you'll see in the top right corner that says join or create a team. So right here, join or create a team. So if you want to create a new team, you click on this and it'll lead you through with some different prompts. So the first thing it's going to ask you is, do you want to create a team or join a team with a code? So if you have a code for somebody else's team, you can put it in here. Right now, we're just going to create a team, and I'm going to click this create a team button. So once I click on that, I'm going to be prompted again, what type of team is this? And if you have an education account, the first option is, of course, going to be class. It could also be a PLC. It could just be a staff group or some other group like a club or something like that, all right? If you choose class, it'll create a class team, and then you can give that team a name. So we'll just call this a test team. You can add a description and then press next. It'll create the team for you, and then you'll see here that you can add people in. You can add individually, or if your admin has set up account groups inside of your account, you can add by group as well. That's something that you would have to ask your admin for that information if there's specific groups that have been made for you. Okay, so you can add students. You'll see there's a tab here for students. And then if you click over, there's also a tab for teachers, and students and teachers have different capabilities within teams. So if you're co-teaching or you have paras that you want to add in or anything like that, just be sure to add them to the teacher side, not the student side, because it will affect how they see it. So you'll see you can add by email address. So if I just start typing here, you'll see, look, I have some students that are already in here. So if I add these in, tech student 2, tech student 3, right? And then I can click add and it'll add those into the group. I'm actually not going to do that right now because I already have that sample team created. So I'm just going to go back to all teams, but you'll see here you have a welcome page. You can start uploading some things. You can find some, webinar help videos, things like that, as soon as you go into your team. So I'm just going to go back to all teams and click back to the OTIS team. So that is how you create a team and what all of the menus inside teams looks like. Now for the channels, you'll see them listed underneath the team. So you'll see here on my screen right now, underneath OTIS team, I have 3 channels. I have general, group A, and group B. All teams automatically get a general channel. Every single team will have a general channel. If you want to add more channels, that's up to you what you want to name them. Okay, so under the general channel is where you find this top menu with the posts, files, class notebook, assignments, and you'll see when I go to the other channels that each channel does not have this full capability. Only the general channel has that. So the general channel is super important, kind of where you want to spend most of your time. So if we click into group A, you'll see that I just have posts and files. Right? I don't have all of that other functionality, but that's fine. This is kind of what channels are meant for. It's just kind of a place to separate out some materials, maybe post some information that's specific to that group. So you'll also notice that next to group A, as well as group B, I have this little lock. This means these channels are private, so they're only visible to people that are in those channels. So certain students are in group A and certain students are in group B, and they don't see the other group. They don't even see the channel at all. They're not aware of its existence. So it can be really great for some differentiation and things like that if you would prefer to keep things private for your students. To add a channel, you click on the 3-dot notification, at the top, and you choose add a channel right here that we mentioned before. So if I go ahead and click that, you'll see this dialog box will pop up and you can enter in a channel name. So let's do group C since we have group A and B. You can add a description if you want, it's optional. And you'll see under privacy, standard means everyone that is on that team will have access to that channel. If you don't want that to be the case, you click this drop-down caret right here, and you can set it to private. And when you do that, you'll be prompted. So let's go to next. And you'll be prompted to kind of add different people to different teams. Oh, I already have a group C channel. Let's try group D. Hold on a moment. It takes a moment to just sort of load up. And here you go. Here's the prompt. So you'll be prompted once again, just like you were when you created the team with adding students or teachers to that account. I'm going to skip it for now because we don't really need it. Okay, and then over here now you see I have my additional group over here. I have group A, B, and D. Okay, so if I click this 3-dot ellipsis menu next to the channel, you'll see a bunch of different options, such as you can set your notification preferences, you can hide the channel, which is clearly what I did with group C, since I didn't see it and it said I had a group, I probably have it hidden. You can manage the channel from here, add members, email addresses, edit, delete, and leave the channel. So that is the basics of groups and channels inside of Microsoft Teams. So we're going to head back over to our presentation and we're going to take a look at what is next. So we went over all of the menus and the basics and the creation of teams and channels. Now we're going to start talking a little bit more about working in teams. So I'm going to be highlighting a few of the features for you, like class notebook, assignments, and video conferencing. I really think those 3 are the most important for teachers. There are some other functionalities, and like I said, I do encourage you guys to just sort of play around with things and see what lives where and things like that. The more you use it, the more familiar you get with it, the easier it's going to be to use, and the better you're going to know how it's going to work for you. I've seen different teachers use Teams in very different ways, and it really just depends on your personality, your style of organization, and your students as well, and how they prefer to use Teams. So just keep that in the back of your mind as we continue on. Okay, so first things first, we're going to chat about Class Notebook. I love Class Notebook. I think everybody should be using it if you're using Teams. A lot of teachers tend to want to use the Files functionality, and really Files is designed, it was originally designed more for people using Teams for business. There's sort of a different subset of people using Teams. They don't have Teams for education, they have Teams for business, and Files is a big part of that. If you put something in your files section on Teams, everyone in that team is going to be able to collaborate on that document, and there's no way to stop them from doing that, which is fine if you want your students to be collaborating on a document. But if you just want to give your students a handout that your students are not able to edit, you don't want to put that in files, because students could delete it, students could accidentally edit it, students could purposely edit it, and maybe you didn't want that edit to be there, right? So Class Notebook is really what you want to be using as a teacher, because it has a lot more functionality specifically for teachers, with a lot of view-only options for students to do handouts and things like that. So first things first, there are 4 major parts of the Class Notebook. The first part is the collaboration space. So you don't even need to use files to do that. It's built right into Class Notebook. And it's just a little space right at the top. You'll see it when we go over to Teams again. Great for brainstorming, great for group work, for maybe students are doing a research project and they just need somewhere to plop down all the resources they found, and they just add a bunch of links so that everybody can see them, right? Really good for these, you know, sort of quick tasks or big sort of group things like that. So collaboration space, you have it right there. It's already built in. Everyone on the team will be able to see it and edit it at any time. Then you have the content library. The content library is where you want to be storing your files as a teacher. It is view only for students. So students can see everything that's in there, but they can't edit any of it. So this is a great place for handouts, for reference sheets, for sources maybe you want to differentiate or scaffold a little bit for your students and you want them to have a place where they can do that. That's your content library. It's really great for materials, but you don't always necessarily want your students to see all of your materials, or maybe what's upcoming, or maybe you're doing a unit exam and you don't want them to have access to some of the older things because you're trying to test to see if they, like actually remember the information that you were teaching them. So you do have a teacher only space. This is fairly new. So if you guys were using Teams last school year and you haven't used it all summer and you're ready to hop back into it, this might be something new for you. It's something that was added on relatively recently. So only teachers can access this. Sorry about the typo there on my screen. And co-teaching and co-planning is great with this, because any teacher that's added as a teacher, so remember when you were adding users and there was students and teachers, this is why you want to make sure that your co-teachers and your paras and anybody that's supporting you teacher-wise is going to be a teacher, because they will have access access to this teacher-only space, and they will be able to share and edit things in there. So if you're developing materials, or you want to split your prep work with your co-teacher, this is a great way to do that. The students do not see anything that's in here. They cannot see it, they cannot edit it, they cannot access it at all. It's just for you. So what you could do is you could prep your whole semester or your whole quarter or even your whole year, and you could have all your materials in your teacher only, and as your units are coming up, you can move them into the content library so that students can see them, or you could even give them out to students so that students can edit them, depending on what type of material you have. The final thing in the class notebook is the student notebook. So just like the teacher has their own notebook, the student also has their notebook. So for every student that you've added to your team, they will get their own tab with their own notebook. This is the place where if you're doing, for example, a synchronous, video lecture sort of a thing, you want the students to be taking notes, this is where they should be taking their notes. This is where they should be doing their, different assignment work, things like that. This is a place for the students specifically to be working different things out, and each student will have their own, and the teacher can of course see all of the student notebooks. So you'll see when I go back to Teams, I have 4 students added to my class, or my team right now. I'll see all 4 of their notebooks, and of course students will only be able to see their own notebook. They won't be able to see other students' notebooks. So that's the basics of class notebook. So let's hop back over to Teams and take a look at what it looks like. So if I go back to my, this one over here, go back into my team over here, I'm still in my OTIS team, but remember, all of my fun stuff is on my general channel up here. So I'm gonna go back to my general channel. And you'll see up at the top, I have this stream here. I have files, which we briefly talked about. I'm not really going to focus on it, but if you guys want to play around with it, go ahead and do that. And then we have the class notebook is the next one. So this is where class notebook lives. For those of you that didn't see that click, it's just right here in the middle. So when you first open class notebook, it's going to take you to this welcome page. And you can read through this on your own. It just kind of gives you a little overview, and there's some links here for additional information. But the really important part of class notebook, once you're inside of it, is this arrow over here, which a lot of people miss. But this is going to open your menu where you can see all of those different parts that I was showing you on the slides presentation. Okay, so in here you have your little welcome, and then you have your collaboration space, your content library, teacher only, and then you see here, because I'm the teacher, I see all 4 of my students that are in this class. I see each of their notebooks. And they'll come up actually as like little tabs, as if it was an actual, notebook, like a, one of those 5-star notebook kind of deals. So if I click on the little caret next to collaboration space, you'll see that you can, you're always going to get sort of like a user guide with each part, but you can add in additional parts. Right here, I have group A and group B, each have their own collaboration space. You can do that by going down to the very bottom where it says section. So right down here, and you can add a section into any one of these things, and just be aware of where you're clicked onto. So if I'm clicked onto collaboration space and I click section, it's going to add a section underneath wherever I am. Oops, see, I wasn't clicked onto it, so now it just added it up at the top. If you ever wanted to delete something, you can right click and then choose delete section. And then you'll just have to confirm that and it'll delete it for you. So, all right, so here I'll click into group B, and maybe I want to make a subgroup. So I want to make group B1 and group B2. So if it's highlighted and you click section, it should automatically nest underneath wherever you have it. There you go. So it'll automatically nest underneath wherever you are at the time. Okay. So in the content library, you also have some tabs here. So you again have the using, and then we've added some March and some April tabs for the content, right? And inside each part, you'll see on the next sort of panel over, so we have the section panel and then we have the page panel. You have all of the different pages in here. So this one has a few pages. It has March 17th reading, and it also has March 17th questions, right? Remember, because this is in the content library, the students can see anything that's in here, but they cannot edit it. So this is view only for the students. So say I wanted my students to answer these March 17th questions. If I wanted to do that, I could actually hand it out to my students and give them each their own editable copy. So in order to do that, this class notebook menu right here is going to be your best friend. So you have all of your sort of typical word processing things here. You have a home, file, insert, draw, view, all of the things that you kind of see in like Microsoft Word. But this class notebook is special over here. And this gives you some additional functionality specific to class notebook inside Teams. So if I click on this, you'll see another sub menu will pop up under here, right? Lots of menus in Teams, but it all has lots of good stuff in it. Right, so this submenu underneath class notebook, you'll see some special capabilities. You can distribute a page, you can distribute a section, you can copy to content library, review student work, and manage notebooks. So in order to hand this out to students, if I wanted to give students these questions, I would go to distribute page, right? Because this is a page. If I wanted to give out the whole March section to students and they would be able to edit it, I could go to distribute section, right? That's the difference, right? Sections all the way to the left and then pages next to that. So I just want to give them the page. So I can distribute individually, like student to student, or I could do group distribution if I have groups set up by my admin, or I could even distribute it to a different notebook. So if I, for example, have another class, if I have, you know, for example, a social studies class, it's a different team. It's called Social Studies 101 or something like that. And I want to take this and put it into the other team's notebook. I can do that from a different team, which is actually really cool and useful. I can also delete the page from here, as well as that right click that I showed you guys before. So let's go to individual distribution and I'll show you what pops up. So all the way on the right-hand side of my page, you'll see another panel has popped open for individual distribution, and you'll see all the students in your class will be listed here. Anyone that you check off will get the page distributed to them. So let's give it out to everybody. And once you're ready, you just click this next button right here. And then it's going to ask you where you would like to distribute this to. So each student notebook also has different tabs. We're going to get more into that in just a few moments. So you're going to choose one of these to put it in. So if this is an assessment, if this was like a little quiz, I might want to put it in assessments. If it's just a handout for them, I could put it there, class notes, or their journal. And you can set these to be whatever you want them to be, the different tabs. So for right now, we're just going to put it in handouts. We're going to click distribute. And then you'll get this little confirmation. It'll show you this kind of like loading bar, right? And when it's all done, it'll confirm it for you over there. Yep, see, there it goes, it's done. And when you're all done, you can just click the X to get out. So let's check on those student notebooks. So remember, whenever this little side thing gets hidden, it's this caret right here to the side. Sometimes it gets lost in there and you get a little confused. So let's check out a student notebook. Let's open up Tech Student 1. So you can see here that this tech student has journal, assessments, class notes, and handouts, and each tab is a different color. You can actually change the color by right-clicking on any of the tabs and going to section color, and there is a myriad of different choices for color. You'll see all sorts of fun stuff in there. So that's a nice sort of way to just keep the kids organized and on task and give them a little visual cue. So, oopsie, clicked out by accident. So in Tech Student 1, let's check out handouts and let's see if that page went in there. Here we go, March 17th questions. Looks like I shared it a few times, but it did distribute into the student notebook. And now the student will be able to actually answer on here. As you can see, I wrote in a little answer there. as an example as a student. All right, another thing that I just quickly wanted to show you is in this teacher only section, you can keep materials in here, like I mentioned before, that students will not have access to. But if you're in here, you can actually go to Manage Notebooks. You can do this from anywhere really, but I'm showing you inside the teacher only. If you go to Manage Notebooks and click on it, you'll see that this is where I can set my sections. So I have all the different tabs here that I have named for my students. So the students do not set up their own notebooks. The teacher sets up the notebooks for the students. Okay, so you can make it whatever you want and sort of control how students are organizing their information that way, which is really nice for all of us that have been teaching with students where they're actually using physical notebooks, and you see some of these notebooks and how they're organized or not organized. It's actually really nice to be able to sort of really very heavily structure and guide students in how to organize digitally. It's really a breath of fresh air for me personally. Okay, so you can see here, I can edit this if I wanted to. All you have to do is click in, and I can change assessments to like quizzes, for example, if I wanted to. And this will change it for all students, right? All students have the same thing, so it'll change it for everybody, right? I can add a section here if I wanted to give them a new section, right? Just by clicking that add button. And then if you want to save your changes, you of course click save, and if you don't, you can click cancel. You can also turn on and off collaboration spaces, right? There's a notebook link that you can send out to students, right? And the teacher only section group, you can enable and disable that as well. So if you don't really want to use the teacher only, you don't have to, just disable it and you won't even see it. So I'm going to cancel. I don't need to save this, but I just wanted to show you guys that. And when you're all done, you just click close on the top right. Alrighty, so that is the class notebook. Let's head back to our presentation and go over our next part. So we're going to talk a little bit about assignments and then about video conferencing before we wrap it up for today. So assignments in teams. So assignments are really great in teams because everything is just sort of connected together. So you can assign students work and it will connect automatically to the content from the content library. It'll automatically create a student copy to edit within the notebook, and students can add their own individual work to it. You can, this is optional for all assignments, you can add a rubric and you can add a due date to any assignment, or you can leave both of those open-ended. So if you wanted to give students an assignment, but you don't necessarily want it to be graded, you just want it to be either pass-fail or they did it or didn't do it for participation, you can absolutely do that. You can also just add a point value without using a rubric. So if you don't need a rubric for a certain assignment, you can just say this is a, out of 10 points, answer these 10 questions, and you can make it as simple as that. And then finally, all of your assignments will automatically connect to the gradebook inside Teams. So if you set a due date, Teams will automatically know on this date, all the grades need to be in, and if they're not in, then they get a 0 or, what have you. There is an option to allow students to turn things in late, which you can check off if you would like to do that as well. So a lot of really cool functionality inside of there. It all is in one place, works well together. So it really is like a learning management system. Okay, so let's head back into Teams and let's go over to assignments, which is right next to class notebook up here, and you'll see grades right next to that. So if I click into assignments, you'll see inside here, I have a couple of things that I have assigned, and some of the students have turned them in. So everything will come up right here with the title, the due date, if you set any, right, and who turned it in. And then underneath, it'll show you if things are graded or not. And you can also save things as a draft. So if you are not sure exactly how that assignment's going to work, but you want to start working on it, you could save it here and you could always go back and use things later. So let's go into creating an assignment, which we're going to do with this big blue button here. So if you click on that, you'll get a couple options. You can create from existing, so that'll be the drafts, right? You can create a quiz or an assignment. So for now, let's do an assignment. And it'll open up this window for you. And And you'll just type in the title of the assignment, any instructions that you might have. And in the instructions, you can include links, right? You have some sort of editing tools available to you in this bar. And you can also add resources. So if you have already worksheets that you have made, that you have files saved on your computer, you can add them right in here. Super easy. You can add websites, right? Anything you like into here, right inside the instructions for the assignment, which makes it really easy and accessible. Then down here, you see you can add points. And if you click this, you can add a rubric. So if you click in, you just add the points yourself. And this, if you click on the add rubric, it'll take you to this, and it actually saves all of your rubrics inside of here. So you can see right now I have a research rubric that was made back in April that I could use again and again if I wanted to, because it saves it. If you already have rubrics made that you've been using for years that you like, simply upload them into Teams. Easy as that, right? No need to reinvent the wheel here. Or if you wanted to, you could create a new rubric inside here and it will automatically be saved. So pretty cool functionality there. Underneath that, of course, you have the team that it's assigned to, which should be the team that you're in, but you could always change it. And then you can assign it to all of the students, or you can assign it to individual students if you wanted to. You could select from here. You have a due date here, and you even can have a time that it's due. So this is kind of cool for remote learning, where you may be doing some asynchronous work and you want to give students the benefit of the doubt and enough time in order to complete their assignments. So it might not necessarily be due at whatever the class time traditionally is if you were in the classroom. Maybe students don't have access to the internet at that time, or maybe their brother or sister is using the computer in their house. So you can actually say, you know what, you have until midnight to get this done. So that's kind of cool. Just a little tidbit there that I find enjoyable. You can also allow or disallow students to turn things in late, right? And you can set different post dates for this. So if I click on this edit menu here, this is another thing I really love. You can schedule to assign in the future. So you can set up all of your assignments for the next month, but they won't be posted until the day that you say you want them posted, right? So if you have something that's going to be due, 2 months down the road and you want to assign it a month down the road, but you already know what it is, you can set teams to do that and the students won't know about it until you want them to know. Pretty cool stuff. You can also choose a close date. So if you want students to not be able to hand in after a certain time, you can set that in this edit menu as well. So some important options in there. Okay, and then once you're done, you would click assign over here, or schedule if it's scheduled. Or if you wanted to save it as a draft, you would click this. And if you don't want it at all, you can discard it. So we're just going to discard. We don't need this one. And it'll confirm it for me. And that's assignments. And then if we quickly look over at grades over here, you'll see anything that has been graded will automatically come up in here. It'll list all of your assignments along the top row. And it'll list all your students vertically going down, right? And anything that's been graded will show up here. And extra super fun feature that I love, you can export to Excel, right? Which of course has a lot more data functionality. You can do some charts and graphs and different sorts of tracking methods there. Really simply click of a button, super easy. So that is a fantastic thing about Teams grading. So let's head back quickly to our presentation. And we're just going to quickly go over some video conferencing inside Teams. So with video conferencing, you can actually do direct instruction if that's something you want to do. You can just do check-ins with individuals or groups if you're doing remote learning. You can also, do small group meeting. Teams, actually different groups of students can meet on their own if you want them to do that, or you could just monitor and take a back seat. And you can also meet with your co-teachers via the video conferencing software that's built right into Teams. And the great thing about that is it'll post to that stream that I showed you in posts when a meeting is. It'll also post to the calendar if you schedule one. So everything is all in one place, which is really, really cool. So how to conduct a meeting. So you can start it live, like I mentioned. You can schedule it. You can share your screen inside a meeting, just like I'm doing right now with Zoom. You could do the same thing on Teams. You can change presenters while you're inside a meeting. And they have like a raise your hand function, an attendance function. There's a lot of really cool things in there. And you can also turn on and off the audio and the video. And I do recommend to everyone, when you're teaching your students or prepping for the beginning of the year, I highly recommend telling your students to start every meeting muted, because when students are coming in at different times and maybe they have background noise, something going on in their house, it can be really overwhelming and get a little crazy, and then students for certain side conversations. So just as a general good rule, start every meeting with everyone muted, and then you can take it from there. Okay, so let's quickly hop over, and I'm going to show you where that meet function is on Teams, and then we'll have some time for questions. Okay, so we're going to go back to our Teams over here. I keep clicking on that first tab, huh? Okay, so inside Teams, in the general channel, you'll see up at the top right, right under where your login is, you'll see this little button Meet. And this is something, again, that Microsoft just recently changed. This used to be all the way down hidden at the bottom of the post stream. It was like in a weird spot. I love that they moved this up here. It's so much more user-friendly. So you'll notice that there's a little caret next to it. And if you pop that down, you can meet now, which will automatically start a meeting for this specific team, or you can schedule a meeting. So if you know that your students are on and you just want to meet with them quickly, you can use this. Otherwise, I really do recommend using the scheduler, because students will get notifications via their email. It'll post in the stream that there's a meeting upcoming, and it'll post on that calendar that I showed you guys at the beginning. So it's a really good way to sort of keep track of what you're doing, and to help your students keep track of what they're doing. It'll send them lots of different reminders in different areas, so it's really kind of hard to lose it or hard to forget about it. Okay, so let's click into schedule a meeting, and I'll just show you guys what that looks like quickly. And so in here, you'll see you can add a title of the meeting, different attendees, your date and time. You can also make it repeat. So for example, if you wanted to have a meeting with a certain group of students once a week just to check in, if you wanted to say do it every Thursday at 2 p.m., you can make that happen in the repeating section. You can do it weekly, daily, every weekday. There's a custom one. It's really a pretty cool tool. Then of course, which team it is. So this is the OTIS team, but you could change that. You can add a location if you want. I tend to leave this blank, especially if you're doing remote. And then you can add all sorts of fun stuff. So just like with an assignment, you can add in, details of what the meeting will be about, an agenda. You can put in a link. I mean, you can even put in a little chart if you wanted to. There's tons of stuff in here. And then when you're all ready with this, you would just go up here and click send, and then it'll automatically post to the stream. So let's just do a test meeting, and we'll require, let's see, tech student 2 and tech teacher 2. Why not? And we'll keep the time the same, and we'll send it. And let's just see what happens over here. So this has been sent. So let's go into posts over here and see if it's on our posts. There we go. I scheduled a meeting, and there it is. So you see it pops up here in the stream, right? You can even reply to it. So if the other teacher can't make it, she could reply here, or he could reply here. And let's see if it went into the calendar. It did indeed. There it is, test meeting right there. It's still loading, so sometimes it takes a minute to load, but it will come up in there. So if we go back into Teams, that is pretty much it. I can show you guys what a meet looks like, but I know we're kind of running low on time, so I did want to leave some time for questions.
We have only 2 minutes left before we have to kind of do a hard stop. I know Joe has been answering questions like crazy in the Q&A box, which is great. So maybe what we should do is, if the audience has any further questions, where should they reach out to have you answer those?
So a good place to reach out would be otis@tech.com, that email. Anyone on the professional development or curriculum teams has access to that. And then they could reach out to me personally, but I think the OTIS is better because more people will see it. So if I happen to be busy or filming or something, that's a good place to reach out. So it's OTIS, OTIS the @TEQ.com.
I just put it in the chat box for everyone.
Excellent.
So make sure to copy that. And with that, I think we have to kind of wrap up. I want to thank you so much for presenting today. This was really excellent, very, very informative. I'm sure the audience loved it as well. For anyone who is still interested in keeping their learning going today, at 12 o'clock, we are starting Simplify Blended and Remote Learning with LearnerPal. At 1 o'clock, we have Active Learning Strategies to Address Learning Loss. That's with Smart Technologies. We have Engaging Students in Modern STEM Learning in person, virtually, and hybrid settings with Rusty from UB Tech. Hybrid and distance learning with Kai's Clan. It's a great lineup today. So make sure if you haven't registered for those sessions, please do so. You can go to tech.com on the events tab, click into that, and there you'll see the Tech Virtual Summit page. All the registration links are there. Christine, Joe, thank you both so much again. This was really, really wonderful.
Yeah, thanks so much for having us, and I hope everyone enjoyed it as well. And like Nina said, if you have questions, please just reach out. I'm happy to help. There's a lot to teams. I'm sorry I ran a little over, but we're always here for you if you need us.
Great. Thank you so much. Bye.